Welcome to Exam Sale. In this video we will break down the official syllabus for Cisco, Building Cisco Service Provider Next Generation Networks Part 1, known as SPNGN1, so you know exactly what to study and why. The SPNGN1 exam is organized into 6 domains with the following weights: Routed Network Technologies I 25%, Switched Network Technologies I 20%, IPv4 and IPv6 addressing 16%, Cisco Operating Systems and Platforms I 15%, IP Networks 13%, and IP Services 11%. The exam mixes hands-on labs and conceptual questions and is rated overall as medium difficulty with targeted study hours noted for each domain. Use these weights to prioritize study time and practical practice for the hands-on assessments. Routed Network Technologies I carries 25% of the exam and requires about 35 hours of focused study. With medium difficulty and a blend of hands-on and conceptual assessment, you will learn router fundamentals, how routers forward packets, and how administrative distance affects route selection. Then practice configuring and verifying IPv4 static routes and default routes. Expect to study distance vector behavior, RIP2 basics, and interval routing using router on a stick so you can configure and troubleshoot routing in a service provider environment. Switched Network Technologies I is 20% of the exam, estimated at 30 hours of study, and assessed with hands-on and conceptual tasks at medium difficulty. This domain covers Layer 2 switch operation, Ethernet frame structure, MAC address learning and forwarding, and practical configuration of VLANs and 802.1q trunking. You will also learn spanning tree protocol purpose and basic operation, VTP modes, and common Layer 2 troubleshooting techniques to identify and resolve switching issues on service provider access and aggregation layers. IPv4 and IPv6 addressing represents 16% of the exam and requires about 25 hours of study with conceptual and scenario-based assessment at medium difficulty. Candidates will master IPv4 address structure, VLSM subnetting and host range calculations, and practical planning of addressing schemes for networks. You will also learn IPv6 representation and unicast address types, methods like SLOC and DHCPv6 for assignment, link local versus global addresses, multicast basics, and transition mechanisms to interoperate IPv4 and IPv6 environments. Cisco Operating Systems and Platforms I is 15% of the exam, with around 20 hours of study and a mix of hands-on and conceptual assessments at medium difficulty. This domain teaches the architectures of Cisco iOS, iOS XE, and iOS XR and how those differences affect configuration and management, including the iOS XR II stage commit process. You will practice basic CLI configuration, software image management and boot procedures, file system navigation, and learn platform-specific hardware components encountered on service provider routers. IP Networks makes up 13% of the exam, is rated easy and takes roughly 15 hours of study with conceptual and scenario-based assessment. You will review the OSI model functions and compare it to the TCP/IP stack, then identify service provider network types and the roles of core, aggregation, and access layers. The domain also covers connection-oriented versus connectionless services and common physical media and interface standards so you can map logical designs to real hardware. IP Services accounts for 11% of the exam, is considered easy, and needs about 15 hours of hands-on and conceptual study. You will configure and verify DHCP server, client, and relay operations, understand DNS resolution and common record types, and practice NAT and PAT configuration for address translation. The domain also covers using ICMP for reachability and path discovery, the purpose of NTP for time synchronization, and how various IP service protocols support a service provider network, preparing you for practical troubleshooting tasks. That wraps up the syllabus overview for SPNGN1 and gives you a clear study roadmap tied to domain weights, difficulty, and estimated hours. Focus on hands-on practice for the routing and switching domains, review addressing and platform concepts thoroughly, and use the domain percentages to prioritize your preparation for exam day.